Hey, so here we are. We have got one more person to introduce, and he is. He's Jack Walker. Pleased to meet you, Jack, online in STACS,
Hello.
our festival here.
Thanks for having me.
You were also presenting at the JPM Morgan festival. How did you find that?
Yes, that was a great building, and then we're very keen to have more computing events in the future. So quite excited to get the students along to those offices, get talking to some staff members there. Sounds like a great opportunity.
Because I see that the girls from your school are out and about a lot, and like competitions and things like that. I think kind of Kate was saying that, bringing computing away from jotters and classrooms and coming it into the real world and getting the kids to see that real world connection.
Absolutely, yeah, it's exactly what I'm going to talk about, trying to get away from the jotters and outside the classroom.
Okie dokie. Well, without more further ado, we'll get out of your way and
Okay, I think I'll just click here, just get my slides up. Are you able to enable my slides, Brendan? There we go. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, as I was just saying there, I'm going to talk about engaging girls in computer science, looking at an event-based approach. So a little bit about me. I've just finished my probation year. I've been working at St George's, which is an all-girls private school in Edinburgh. I also did a bit of my PGD placements there and got offered a job, and I've been there for the last year. So I want to start off with this quote from a report by the Scottish Government in 2021. And it's saying that although the gender gap is reduced in subjects such as engineering, there's been a further 1.6% decrease in the number of girls choosing to study computer science. So it's getting better in everything else, getting better in science, engineering, but computing, it's getting worse. And I'm really passionate about why is this and what can we do to close this gender gap. And being at an all-girls school, I'm in this unique position where I can hopefully do something about this. So as part of my practitioner inquiry, I looked at how could events assist getting girls more engaged in computer science. And I'm going to take you through the research I did for that inquiry. I'm going to take you through an event that I ran and then the feedback and the next steps from that event. So pre-event research. So I looked at three things in my pre-event research, and one of them was this global disparity. So looking at the fact that there are less girls in computing across the world. It's not just here in Scotland, it is a global issue. There are less girls who take computer science. And the reasons for this are multifaceted, they're complex, but the research suggests that this is because of kind of outdated stereotypes, the lack of role models that these girls have going into computer science. And I've got photos of things like Bill Gates here, who they all see in the textbooks or online when they're looking up history of computer science. So yeah, it's these outdated stereotypes and these lack of role models that the girls have. And then there's the situation in Scotland. So what I've just touched on there, less and less girls are picking computer science in Scotland. And why is that? And what can be done about it? And there is already some great initiatives, such as the ones Tony runs herself. We've got those dress code clubs that are all girls coding clubs, getting them in a kind of safe, comfortable environment where they can explore computer science away from those stereotypes. And they've been very successful. So there is some initiatives already there. And I'm just looking to build on these. And then the third part of research that I did was this kind of idea of the economic and social implications. So Mark Logan, who was the ex-CEO of Skyscanner, and he's now the Chief Entrepreneurial Officer to the Scottish Government, published a report called the Logan Report. And one of the things he touched on was this funnel. So the idea that the less and less people we have doing computer science early on, it means the less startups, the less innovative businesses that Scotland's going to produce as a whole. So he touched on the fact that it's absolutely crucial that we get these girls engaged in computer science at a younger age, because if we don't, that funnel gets smaller and smaller and less girls are likely to start these tech startups in the future in Scotland. So that was the kind of three main parts of pre-event research that I did. And then just backing these up, some extra statistics here. In general, not just girls, but there's been 10,000 less students choosing to study computing since 2010. And that's a really worrying statistic. So that's at Nat 5 higher and advanced higher level. 10,000 less students. That number should really be going up, but it's actually going down. And then the Logan report as well. So that report by Mark Logan, one of the conclusions it came to quite harshly was boring. It said that the computing curriculum can become boring, and this is kind of one of the reasons that less and less people are taking it. Obviously, it's been great to hear today all these amazing initiatives going on to try and make it more engaging. So there is a lot happening, but there's obviously still a lot more work to be done. So following on from this, when I started at St. George's, I thought I'd do a little bit of my own research. And I did a survey with the kind of 200 students from primary 6 all the way up to 6th form at St. George's. And I asked them my own questions. And the results were kind of in line with this research I'd already done. So the first question I asked them is, what's your opinion of computer science in school? And straight away, you can see popping off right in the middle there is that word boring is coming out. We have got words like engaging, we've got interest in there as well, but the majority, the overwhelming feeling was boring. And this is obviously just at my school when I joined, but it does line up with what Mark Logan's been saying in his report. I also asked the girls, how can we make computer science more appealing? So I asked for their own opinions, and some common themes started to come out quite quickly. And they want more talks from women in computing. They want interactive computing lessons, and they want real-world connections in their lessons. And these came up again and again in the survey. So just before I kind of go on, I thought I'd ask everybody who's watching here today, what activities or events have you seen that have actively engaged specifically girls in computer science? And can you recommend any companies or organizations that are supporting these initiatives? And I'll keep talking just now, but you can put your comments in the chat and we can have a little look at what people have experienced, what works across Scotland. So going back to my research, from that, I started to have a little think. So these girls want talks from women in computing. What does that mean? How could we maybe do that? Well, I thought, can we get some talks in school? Can we get women coming into the school, women in computing, women in industry, to talk to the girls? Since COVID, it's a lot easier to kind of do online group calls now. People are more willing to do that. So could we reduce the burden of organizing an event and have some Zoom calls with professionals in computing? And then I'm lucky to be based in Edinburgh, where we've got lots of big offices, big tech companies. We've also got like the National Robotarium. So could we maybe do some school trips as well? And then on the front of real world connections and lessons, what could we do there? How could I bring the real world into class? So I started thinking, this is my first year, so I'm exploring lots of new ideas, but I'm thinking, could we incorporate more relevant issues that are prevalent today? A lot of them love it when we start talking about Snap AI, how it works, what's going on behind the scenes, why does it sometimes pretend to be your friend? Cross-curricular lessons as well. There's definitely an interest to get computing across the curriculum. We've been looking at modern studies this year again, AI in the elections, how is that impacting them? And then we've just been chatting about the microbits in the past talk, really interesting ideas there. And then maybe some more discussions lessons as well. So less coding and more talking about the ethical side of things, talking about the impact of computer science in the real world. Yeah, so just going back to that question, I see some great ideas coming in the chat. Girl code, heard of them, they're fantastic. Yep, dress code, absolutely great one. Sky hosted a visit and their staff were fantastic and talking to the girls. So that's really interesting. Big companies like Sky coming in to do talks, Lego League as well. Yeah, we run that at the school. So kind of all of this, I thought, how can we bring this together? And I decided to plan an event at the school. So what was this event? What did it entail? Well, I'd say it was about November last year, I started planning this event. And the initial plan was just to get a few key role models in to talk to the girls at the school. So I asked a lot of people, thinking not a lot of people would reply and want to come in, but quite quickly, everybody replied yes. Lots of big companies really willing to come in, really passionate about getting more girls into computing. So this event quite quickly grew arms and legs, and the support started to flood in. The event ended up having 300 girls from various schools. So that was from St. George's and surrounding schools. We started the day off with a keynote speech from Leah Hutchin, who is the CEO of a company called Appointed. Now, she's not a computer scientist herself, but being the CEO of a tech company, she was telling the girls the story of her journey, talking about all the different women that she'd met along the way. And then after Leah's talk, we had a series of other women in computing from different roles. We had software developers, we had product managers, we had some more founders who were talking at the event. And they all did a little speech about what they do in computing, and then they handed out some certificates to the girls as well. You can see we had Spot the robot dog came in from the National Robotarium, who was an absolutely massive hit, and Spot walked across the stage and it handed all the girls some certificates, which got them very excited, very engaged. So that's how we started the day. And then the kind of big highlight for me was the afternoon. So we moved all the chairs out of this assembly setup and we set up this kind of festival stalls. We had 12 companies in total, and we had 40 professionals from industry there. And the girls got an opportunity to go around all these different stalls, meet with all these different women in different roles in computing, and get hands-on trying activities. They had word searches, which was oddly one of their favorite things to do. I thought they'd be bored by that, but they absolutely loved it. They got to play with the robots as well. They got to do some coding of robots. We had space intelligence, who use AI to map certain areas from satellites. So the girls got an opportunity to try that, which they loved. NatWest had lots of generative AI initiatives as well. So there's lots of great stuff that the girls got to do on the day. We also had, as I've mentioned, demonstrations from Spot the Robot Dog. So this was, I believe his name was Brian from the Robotarium. He did a great shift. He was up there for hours with groups of 10 girls coming around, looking at the robot. He was telling them how it worked. They were asking questions. It was great to see them so engaged, asking questions about applications of it in the real world, how it works, what it's used for. That definitely was one of the highlights of the day, just this kind of tangible, high-tech robot in front of them and somebody really passionate about it getting to speak to the girls. And the big emphasis of the day for me was the role modeling and the visibility of women in computing. The girls got to see all these different women in all these different roles, and this is now what they think of when they think of a software developer, when they think of a product manager, when they think of a CEO of a tech company. We've got photos from the day of all these different women that we had, and it was just great to see the girls inspired and kind of changing their perceptions of what a computer scientist is. I purposely targeted the event at primary 6 to S2 because I think this is the kind of key stages where we want to get them excited and we can set in their minds what computer science is. Get them excited about it at that age is what my goal was, set those role models. I also invited along all the girls who had taken computer science at the school, and it was interesting seeing them because they were more at it from a career point of view. They're already interested in the subject, so they were starting to talk to these women, asking them what it's like to work in industry, getting some advice from everybody. So exciting those younger girls, getting them role models in front of them, and then for the older girls, starting to make those connections in industry and think about a career in computing beyond school. Feedback and outcome. So I did another survey after the event. I surveyed all 300 girls who'd attended, and the results were fantastic. We got 72% of the girls said that they enjoyed the event. 92% expressed a desire for similar events in the future. And the kind of only main bit of negative feedback we got was the event was a bit crowded. And I think this was my fault because I wasn't expecting so many companies to say yes. So we were all in the hall. It was very busy and lots of stalls that the girls had to go around. And this word cloud here, this really made me quite happy. If we compare that to the word cloud at the start, where boring was the word that popped off in the center, here the big words are interesting, fun. Then it's going exciting, inspiring. We've still got boring there, I see, very small, but overall, the girls really enjoyed the day. They found it interesting. They found it fun. So that was absolutely fantastic to see. I've got a little 60-second video of the day just to give you a feel for the kind of buzz in the room. So I'm going to attempt to play that for you now, or I might let Brendan do it. It's just down there on the... There we go. Brilliant. We just get the slides back up, Brendan. So I think that video really gives a feel for the atmosphere that was there in the room that day, and all these different people from industry who came and gave up their time for free to inspire these girls. And then some feedback on social media as well. We've got one of the parents at the top there saying daughter came home excited, inspired for the day, wanting to follow in their footsteps. And then some professionals from industry as well, noting how good the event looked and wanting to maybe look at running it in different cities, different schools. So what was the impact of the event? So we're going to break it down. I think strategic partnerships was one of the great things that came out of it for me. I've now got all these contacts and all these companies with all these people who are really passionate about getting women involved in computing. Started to think about educational integration, obviously not an overnight success. I'm now thinking, well, how can I link these activities that we did at the event into the curriculum, put them in at key points? How can we use these new technologies, new apps that the companies were showing us on the day into the curriculum? And then, yeah, as I said already, the role model influence was a real great impact of the event. These younger girls completely changed their perception of what a computer scientist is. Next steps. So recommendations for what I'm going to do next. I think event structure, just spreading it out a little bit more, focusing on those interactive exhibitions. The talks were great, but the bit that was the best was, the robot on the stage was getting their hands on generative AI whilst working with software developers. It was those hands-on activities that were the key part that really got the girls inspired. I think refining gender focus. So what I mean by this is there was a bit of feedback from the girls saying, yeah, we get it. There's not a lot of women in computing. You don't need to keep hammering that in. And I think they make a valid point. I think Tony's quite big on this as well. Yes, the event's looking at getting more girls in computing, but we don't need to make the girls feel like they have to take computing. It should be noted that the goal of this event is to get girls excited about computing and to start close that gender gap, but we don't need to hammer it on the day. Just focus on doing the best event possible and getting the girls excited. And then kind of finally, curricular integration, which I'll go on to more in a second. Some changes to teaching that I've made since that is relating the curriculum to industry a little bit more. So if we're doing lessons on AI, we'll talk about NatWest, we'll talk about what we've seen on the day, we'll look back to that day. Trying out some new resources, just having these companies in, they've got new things that they're building in-house that they're willing to show you, willing to give to you. So there's been some great resources from Amazon that we've been trying in the classroom and from NatWest as well. And then a big one I want to focus on, especially into next year, is this idea of targeted events. So this one-off big events, fantastic for getting everyone excited, but utilizing these contacts and all these people passionate about coming into school, I want to start thinking, well, if my hires are studying cybersecurity, can I get the cybersecurity specialists in for a day? So as we're doing it in class, we're relating it to the real world. If my S2s are doing their AI unit, can I get AI engineers, machine learning engineers into the classroom to talk to them a little bit as we do that? So just looking at how can we target these events throughout the year and get a bit more structure into the curriculum. Some updates I added to the curriculum. So we got AWS resources, a bit more robotics quizzes, which I know was talked about yesterday. FarmBot from Turing Lab, which was absolutely brilliant in getting the girls excited about coding. And then another big one was we did the Get IT app design competition, which is a AWS competition that they run across the UK. Unfortunately, they're not running it next year, but they've got lots of other initiatives. But what the idea is that the girls come up with a problem that exists in the world and they design an app to solve that problem. Now, on the day of the event, we had Turing Fest along, who is a kind of event company that runs a big event every year called Turing Fest for startups and scale-ups in Scotland. We had them at the event and they were coaching the girls on coming up with business ideas, coming up with app ideas to solve problems. And what was really interesting is seeing how well St. George's performed in this app design competition in school following that event. The girls got really into it, really passionate about it, and came up with some great ideas. I've got some here. So one group was looking at the problem that kids aren't educated on banking, aren't educated on finance. It's tricky for them to learn the basics, and it's not all in one nice, neat place. So they designed this beautiful app called Edgemon, as you can see here. And the idea, it was like a Monzo-esque app, but with a focus on personalized lessons. Depending on your spending habits, it would recommend different lessons for you. You kind of have points as you go through it to make it a bit more engaging. Really good idea. Great to see how passionate the girls were about it. And then we actually were lucky enough to get to the final this year. And our group who got to the final were called the Bonsais, and their problem was women don't feel safe walking home at night, women and girls. And Google Maps will take you on the quickest route, not necessarily the safest route. So they were looking at using artificial intelligence to pull in live kind of crime statistics, police reports, analyze all the data, and generate the safest route as opposed to the quickest route. So fantastic ideas. The girls got to the final and came second place. So that's kind of it from me. So just kind of in summary, really positive response from doing a hands-on event like this. High interest from both students and attendees. And it's now about how can I relate this to the curriculum? And I'm also thinking, well, how can I work to run more events like this at other schools? So obviously a lot of work to put this event together initially, but now I've got a structure there. I've got lots of contacts. I'd be very keen on working with other schools, running more events like this, maybe getting some standard contacts for doing structured events throughout the year. So thanks very much for listening. I hope that was interesting. And I can take any questions now, if there's any.
Thank you, Jack. That was really interesting to hear. Always when we hear practitioner inquiry, it's always really reassuring that that's going on out there and that we have a research-led approach happening, which is great for pedagogy in the classroom. But to see it linked to such inspiring ideas for engaging women is really quite inspiring this evening. So I think we've got one or two questions, Brendan, by the looks of it.
Well, yeah, I wanted that since you mentioned that you'd worked with other schools. I just wonder, it's not quite it's not the focus on the girls, but it's kind of it's allied with it. It's like, what's the chances for linking with other schools? Were they inspired by what you did with one? Did they do something with the girls in their school? Are they going to stick with you? Are they going to do their own things?
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I think the girls who came, fantastic feedback from them. They all really enjoyed the day. I need to follow up on them about what they're kind of doing in school. It was mostly primary schools that we had along, but I think definitely I'd look to run this event annually. Maybe look at growing it and running it with more schools next year. And as I say, kind of taking the contacts from it and doing some kind of structured events throughout the year as well. But definitely would be keen to grow this kind of event and run it on an annual or biannual basis.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any other questions from those people that are listening? Of so much content, are we all feeling just suitably inspired this evening by the event? No, I think that might be us for this evening.
Either that or the football is calling. I'm not quite sure who's playing tonight or what the scoreline's got to.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Jack. It really was inspirational and motivational. Last year I presented at this time on project-based learning across P6 Test 2. Couldn't agree with you more about that being the key target for changing attitudes there. This year, our S3 at Morrison's the first time has more than 50% females. And in fact, that's a pattern we're seeing changing across National 5 Higher and Advanced Higher. So, stick with it and let's work together to keep adding to these initiatives across the profession and sharing ideas, sharing contacts too. Would be good. If we all pulled our contacts together into some kind of register, I'm sure we'd end up with some really fantastic resource.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
maybe just like as we're finishing there, a lot of these ideas, people are talking about them on STACS' new website, connected.stacs. You'll find links on stacs.scot website to there. But I mean, that's where people are starting to chat about these things. It's a community of computing science, people who teach computing science rather than necessarily CS teachers, so primary teachers as well, kind of thing. And a great place to kind of share those kind of ideas that you're talking about there, Pam, and just getting more people involved, thinking along the same lines, not reinventing the wheel, etc., etc. So yeah, Jack, that's brilliant, and really keen to kind of hear what happens next year, and seeing how you're going to build on what you've done this year. with the other schools round about you. I mean, I think there's certainly Tony's had people asking about, can we get events kicking off in Edinburgh, pulling schools together, finding out where our synergies are and things like that. So brilliant.
Amazing. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Okay, so I think we're going to kind of say bye to you, and we're going to start say bye to everyone. Yeah, but that was another brilliant evening, Pamela. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, can't thank our guests enough for giving their time this evening on such inspiring, motivating. Their enthusiasm was really fantastic. And just, you know, at the end of term, giving us all so many ideas for moving in to next session is a really fantastic place to be.